Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Shrimp Tank. I'm your host. I'm Mark Scribner in my virtual studio in downtown Boston today, and I'm joined by my co-host Christopher Collins, who's in Jamaica Plain, and his virtual office looks like it's his living room today. And we're joined by Roberta Matuson. Did I say that right, Roberta?
Matuson, but that's fine. Close.
Great. And Roberta's our featured guest today. She's a very high-level talent coordinator. She owns a company called Matuson Consulting, and she's known for her uncanny ability to recruit and attract talent to help achieve top-line growth for some of the biggest corporations in America. In addition, she's a hugely successful author. She has a couple books out there. She's an influencer on LinkedIn, and she also has a new book that she just published called The Evergreen Talent. So for those who haven't heard the Shrimp Tank before, we're now broadcasting in something like 13 cities like Atlanta, Boca Raton, Boston, Charlestown, Central PA, Houston, Arkansas. Now we're actually published or being broadcast internationally. First spot is Canada, with over 1,000 shows in the pipeline so far. And what we want to just remind everybody, what we do here at the Shrimp Tank is we celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit in and around New England with some of the best and brightest leadership throughout New England. And what we also can remind our folks is you can listen to all our shows on iHeart. We're nationally syndicated through iHeart, Google, Apple, basically anywhere you can download a podcast. So with that said, I'd like to introduce or welcome you to the show, Roberta, and thanks for coming.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. So first off, we talked a little bit about this offline, but I think it's really apropos. The numbers that we're hearing, both Chris and I, that are being broadcast for unemployment rates and the many millions right now. I know that your business, normally in a non-recession period is thriving and booming, and you have a lot of traction on recruiting high-level C-suite, primarily talent, is my understanding. But I would assume right now, with all the uncertainty that's going on, that you're probably just bombarded with people padding their resumes or polishing up their resumes and trying to get out there and get some traction on some of the changes. I was curious about your thoughts about that.
Well, let me just, before we go there, let me just clarify. I help the top organizations in the world hire and keep the best people. I'm not a recruiter. So I just want to be clear on that. So when your listeners are, listening in, that they're not like sending me their resumes, because I'm not a headhunter. Okay. But I do know a lot about what organizations look for in terms of how they seek out talent. And I also help my clients attract talent that will stick around. Result of that, has been working with mostly executives on their job searches, and I've definitely seen an uptick. Many of these people are still employed, yet they've made the decision to perhaps look for a new company because they're not thrilled with how their current company is operating, especially in the pandemic. So this new normal and the unemployment numbers they're very sad, first of all, sad for everyone, but there's certainly opportunities both for job seekers as well as business owners, because you have a chance to get talent that 3 months ago, you didn't stand a chance of hiring. And so this is a great opportunity all around.
Is that the biggest, hurdle, is to attract the best talent to the best companies and kind of prying talented people away from a situation that might not be the best, but it is their situation, and trying to get them to make that switch?
Well, I would say 3 months ago, maybe. I think today, everybody's looking very closely at what's going on. I mean, look at what just happened this week. Uber let go of 3,500 employees using Zoom, okay, at the same time. Right. Now, raise your hand if you would like to tell people that you work for Uber right now. Right. Like, is that a company that you would still want to stay with? Because guess what? It's not going to be long before they do the same thing to you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a report that I've seen in Massachusetts called the Warren Report, and the GE's laying off, I mean, or furloughing, not technically laid off completely, but 5,000 people, the TripAdvisor, all these great companies that are really having to change in this pandemic, and
Which is
I don't-
crazy because, all those companies that you mentioned, they're always on the top list of places to work.
culture,
Not more.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
no, it's true. I mean, yeah, and just in Massachusetts alone, you can do a search at top 10 companies to work in New England that I don't know how they surveyed that, but it must be employee ranking or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, culturally, that's a big hit, and I don't know if they
Which is
can ever.
why this is a great opportunity for entrepreneurs, because people wanted to work for these name brand companies, but now people want to work for a company that treats you like family.
Mm.
They're going to think twice before saying sorry, you have to go. And if you're getting hired now by a company, they're pretty serious about their growth plans.
So
And-
Roberta, is there enough good jobs, post-pandemic? I know we don't know exactly what the future looks like, but there's got to be some type of shrinkage. Will there be enough good jobs for good people?
Well, I believe there will be, but you have to be flexible. You can't say, well, I'm not leaving New England or I'm not leaving Florida. It's like you have to go where the jobs are. And the good news is I think companies will be staying virtual for quite a while. So you won't be required to relocate to Nevada. You can stay in New England and work or wherever your home is. But you have to be flexible. You cannot continue to make these demands, which, 3 months ago, you probably could have gotten away with.
And I would assume that kind of leads you in a different direction on the coaching aspect of things you do, because now you're coaching people up to be virtual employees, coaching people up to work from the home space, which, as we know, is entirely different as far as culture, as far as just the interaction with your day-to-day employees. I got to think that's probably an education for yourself that you need to pass on to, the future employees.
Well, I've been working virtually now for over 20 years, so I have some experience there. And the culture in my home is very good. So I feel very fortunate about that. But
As expected.
Employers are going to have to really double down on their efforts to engage people because they can't see them, and people may not feel as appreciated as they may have when they were in the office and the boss said, hey, let me take you to lunch. Now it's like, could you have some dinner delivered? Like, I'm killing myself here.
Oh,
Right.
Obviously a lot of the industries are changing right now. We just to highlight a couple different, sectors. We obviously see some technology firms kind of leaning in towards this with the stay-at-home, work from home type of thing. Healthcare seems like it's a hot space. But do you personally, as someone who runs a successful company, do you pivot towards where the industries are hot, or because I'm sure you have, talent, you have to match talent with the right application, but also probably the right industry. Is that true? Are you pivoting
Well,
towards, specific industries?
I'm very fortunate. I have worked across just about every industry. I can't really think of one industry where I haven't either worked in the industry when I was in corporate or when that I have clients in. And I will tell you this, people are people. And whether, you're hiring somebody for a technology firm, whether you're trying to coach an executive in a pharmaceutical company, the same skills and processes are required. And so for me, in my business, I'm not pivoting. Am I reaching out, deeply into the hotel industry and hospitality right now? No, I'm not, but I am offering my support to them through an association that I belong to and helping out where I can.
What do you see happening with the hotel industry? Does it ever come back to life or come back to how we used to know it? I deal with some clients who own hotels, and boy, it's been a bloodbath. No other way to put it.
Well, I had the experience of staying in some hotels recently. We drove back from Florida, and at first I was like scared out of my mind. I was like, do you think we could drive like for 48 hours straight and not stop? And, we couldn't. We had a dog. So, I saw the changes right then and there, and I thought that they were adapting very well. But yes, it will be a while before they come back, but they will come back. I mean, once there's a vaccine and once we have that, I think we'll be able to move around the planet again.
So, Roberta, I was curious. I mean, you've obviously had the fortunate ability to speak with thousands and thousands of talented professionals. Is there like a top 5 list in your brain that, like, when you're coming to someone, like you're checking off the boxes, like, are they personable? Obviously, the talent, if it's a technical job or the ability has to match up somewhere, but do you have kind of like a running list in your brain when you're working with a candidate, like what you're looking for and some key attributes?
Well, again, I don't do search, so I'm not usually searching for a candidate. I am helping my clients figure out what traits their most successful people have in their organization, and then what do we need to do to get more of those people, and where do we find those people? And so that will vary. I mean, the traits that somebody, who works in a law firm may possess, the ability to work independently, a high sense of multitasking, being able to be very detail oriented is very different than what you might look for in a tech company. So the whole idea is, for you to find the right talent for your organization.
When you get involved with a company, how long does it take for you to get familiar with them and them to get familiar with you, so you guys are on the same page and know exactly what they're looking for, and you know exactly what you're looking for as well?
It doesn't take very long, because all I have to do, or at least I did, was walk in and see what was going on. So for example, I walked into a prospect's office and there were a lot of open cubicles and it was like dead silent. I was like, what's going on? I went into their kitchen to get a glass of water and like no one was talking. And I just thought, this is really strange. Then I met with the owner of the company. And I just thought to myself, oh boy, now I know what's going on. And this is not going to be my client. So you can just tell based on, walking into the environment and hearing and watching the way people interact, what kind of organization it really is, what the culture is like.
And if the culture is kind of messed up, is that not an area that you dive into? You just kind of leave it alone?
I like to work with the best companies because I think it's a lot more fun to bring people up from good to great. When they're down at the very bottom, it's really hard. And, everything you try to do, they're not going to implement anyhow. So it's almost like taking candy from a baby, but it's not fun to take candy from a baby. So, I'm fortunate. I can be selective and I choose to work with companies that are really good, that know that they can be better.
So, and I apologize for the headhunter recruiter analogy before I figured that out the hard way.
A lot of people
but in terms of, just to follow up what Chris said, in companies that you're going into, again, I kind of, my brain thinks of like the David Letterman top 10, top 5 sometimes. But based on your experience, what are some of the key attributes, some of the companies that you've worked with really do it the right way, and you think that should be replicated, or just they figured it out,
They really do put people before profits. And a great example is Kronos in Chelmsford. Their CEO, Aaron Ayan, he is just amazing. I had the opportunity to interview him, and he actually did an endorsement of my newest book, Evergreen Talent. And he is just very authentic. And I've been watching him through this pandemic on LinkedIn, and I'm watching what he says and what he's doing. And he's in the middle of a huge merger. He and his organization and another company have merged, and how he's maintaining calmness and a sense of family and composure amongst his thousands of employees. I mean, it's pretty impressive. And then the head of Airbnb, I mean, they're going through some tremendous changes, but, every week the CEO is out there communicating and, being transparent. That means a lot.
Yeah. And I guess,
Is that being a lot too?
contrast and compare, like, just like you said, compare that to a Zoom firing or a
No, it
layoff
was Uber.
to Uber. Yeah. No, but a virtual cultural, you guys are all out type of thing. So,
Yes, but
so
did you know that and on the same day they made a grab for Grubhub that
right,
is a $4.5 billion company.
right,
So I don't think they were letting these people go because they couldn't afford them any longer.
right. Bad optics, bad optics.
Very
What are some from what I hear is obviously culturally top down, you know, the leadership, the culture, the message that's coming from the leaders as really number one in my opinion of what you're saying. But what are some of the other things that these companies that you've worked with do really well outside of that?
They're very careful who they let into management because they know that, you know, people don't leave companies, they leave managers. And so, you know, they're very selective. You don't just get promoted because you're the next guy or gal, you know, on the totem pole, or you've got the longest, you know, length of service. They're very selective. They train their people. They invest in coaches. I'm working with an organization right now, and in spite of the pandemic, you know, they're still bringing me in to coach new people because this is an investment, and they know long term that they need to make sure that their people have the right skills to take their organization forward, you know, now and into the future. So they're still making investments. They're not trying to cut to profit.
Yeah. And is there any, so there's two are really important I'm hearing.
Correct me if I'm wrong,
Cultural
but
and,
you know, the
go ahead,
coaching
Chris.
has been an uptick. Yeah, there seems to be an uptick in coaching over the last, say, 5 to 6 or 7 years that people really have, you know, started to take it seriously and really have started investing in it. Where, say, a couple decades ago, they really didn't, you know, give it much thought. You know, you kind of were the guy and you came through the system and you became the guy, you know, right or wrong.
Well, I think what's interesting is back in the day, you got a coach because you were identified as somebody who had a problem, and this was a last effort. And we were going to get you a coach. When we, our lawyers, we were firing you, we could show everyone that you had a coach and that we did everything.
Right.
And today it's completely different. You know, if you look at, you know, Tom Brady has like 3 or 4 coaches. I don't think there's a better quarterback in the world. Why does he still have a coach? Because he believes he can get better. And so coaching is about improving and self-reflection and having someone hold up a mirror to show you what others are thinking and how you're being perceived so that you can change and improve in those areas.
And who identifies those weaknesses or areas that need to be enhanced, if you will? Maybe weakness isn't the right word, but where are you in the food chain in terms of identifying those types of investments?
Well, what I love about the coaching that I do stakeholder-centered coaching, and that is based on you, the coachee, identifying, you know, 6 to 8 people who you consider stakeholders, and I go out and I interview them. I interview them virtually. And I find out what you do really well and what they think is holding you back. And I wrap that up and roll it up and send it back to you, and you get to read through it. And then you, the coachee, gets to decide, you know, there's a lot here, but what are the 1 or 2 things that I'm going to work on in this engagement? And that's our focus. We don't try to move 10 things forward an inch. We move 1, maybe 2 things forward a mile. And it's really powerful. It's really, really cool.
The one thing that stuck out to me was your ability to maximize talent. How seriously do you take that?
Very seriously. It's my name, the Talent Maximizer.
Right.
It's my brand. I'm very serious about it. And that's why I'm glad you asked that, Chris, because I'm very selective again on the coaching clients. I will only work with people who want to go from good to great. I don't do remedial coaching.
And how do you squeeze that out of them? How do you get people to, you know, to become Tom Brady as opposed to, you know, the 6th round draft pick?
You don't squeeze it out of them. They have it. They want to be the next Tom Brady. They're going to work as hard. I mean, look at Tom Brady. You know, yes, he's left us. I'm very, very sad about that, you know, as a Patriots fan. But, you know, that guy in the off season is still working it. You know, he's not like sitting back eating donuts, right? And so, I mean, these are the people who are constantly wanting to improve. It's not the people who are like, wow, I'd really like to look like Giselle, you know, while, you know, you haven't been out for a walk in months.
Right.
So I would think, you know, I hate to put labels on things, but desire, motivation, someone's got to want it, I guess, is what you're
Totally. They
saying.
have to want it.
Like
You
Tom
can't,
Brady. Yeah.
you can't make people want something. If they don't want it, there's nothing that I can do to help them. Nothing.
Yeah. Interesting.
When you're creating a brand, and I know that's another important thing that you do, you know, what's kind of the process of really kind of stripping that down and making that, you know, into something that everybody is very desirable to the masses?
Are you talking about my brand or a person's personal brand?
Yeah, somebody who you'd be working with, you know, like one of the companies, you know, and your list is very impressive of some of the companies that you've worked with, and feel free to recognize them if you'd like. But obviously there's been some significant work and some serious work surrounding the branding, because there's some powerful brands that you have obviously dealt into.
Well, you know, first of all, it's about, for anyone, it's really about making sure that your ideas are out in the public, you know, square. And I've written 5 books on leadership and talent. They're all commercially published. I have a 6th book that will soon be on the way. And so it's about constantly getting your thought leadership out there. It's about saying things and looking at things differently, and not just regurgitating what you heard somebody else say. It's putting a different lens on things so that people are interested in hearing what you have to say. It's about making sure that you're not a company's best kept secret, so that when there is an opportunity for promotion, you're the obvious choice. So there's a lot of PR going on in the background, and a lot of people are very uncomfortable with that. They think that, you know, they think that if they do great work, everyone will know. And the truth is they won't.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I was curious, in the organizations that you've worked with, like, how does someone raise their hand or rise to the top? Because if sometimes the work doesn't get them recognized, how would that person, you know, maximize their own talent if you know, management's not recognizing them? Is there a way that you suggest that folks can get recognized or rise to the top?
Well, they have to do what I call strategic promotion. And so they have to find opportunities to strategically promote themselves. And I actually call it shameless promotion. And if any of your listeners would like to have...
Chris is good at that.
Hey, Chris, you and I should work together. I can make you better. If any of your listeners would like, I have some tips on shamelessly promote. And if they email me at Roberta at Matuson Consulting, I'd be happy to provide that for them.
That's great. That's great. And so the question, I mean, you are a very successful business person. Is your company limited, or do you have desires to be growing more, or can you replicate yourself? Because I mean, with this vast knowledge that you have, I mean, you probably only have a certain amount of bandwidth, I would assume.
Well, the majority of my work now is either executive coaching or advisory work. So I'll work with I'll work with the business owner, the CEO, or the top leadership people on a team. And so when you're in an advisory capacity or a coaching capacity, you can take on a lot more clients than when you need to be on site to do a project. I'll do those projects if they help my clients, but for the most part, the majority of my work seems to be in the executive coaching and strategic advisory roles. So I think that you can take on as many people as you want.
Wow. So it's scalable. And then I would assume, I mean, is there an element of psychology? I mean, what do you pull from your vast experience? But it's not just, is it people skills, like psychology? Personal development to me is a big, huge space. And it means something to everyone's a little different in terms of how they interpret that. But what, in terms of the skill set and identifying, maximizing talent, you're going through your checklist of things that people are identifying as areas, or I guess you mutually are identifying areas, but how do you go about like putting that all together in a plan? Like maybe talk a little bit about that.
Well, the unique feature about my background is that I was an executive, so I get it. And I never coach anybody and tell them, hey, you should be doing this, this, and this when I haven't done it myself. In fact, when I was 24 years old, I was tossed into the executive suite. And so, I thought I knew everything, right? Go figure. But I have the experience. Like, I know what it's like to be one of the few women in the room as an executive. And so when I'm coaching my female clients on matters that they feel might be gender related, I can relate. When I'm working with other people who want to promote into the executive suite, I've been there, I've done that. So, am I going to teach somebody how to parachute out of a plane? No, don't call me, call Chris.
So credibility is important.
I think anyone who wants to hire a coach for anyone, you need to find someone who's been where you want to go. Mm. So, I'm not a financial advisor. I've never been one. I don't like the word budget. I wouldn't be your person, So you want to make sure that whoever you work with has gone and been where you want to go.
Did you find that transition of out of the C-suite, working as an executive to coaching up executives? Did you find that a fairly seamless transition?
Well, I didn't go directly from that. Well, yeah, I guess I did. Because I worked in executive roles for a number of companies. But yeah, the difference being that when you're in your own business, you're not really necessarily a consultant. You're in marketing. You're marketing all the time. You have to sell your services, and maybe you deliver, 30% of the time. So I think that shift from realizing, oh, it doesn't matter what I know. If people don't know what I know, none of that matters.
For someone who's put out 5, coming up on 6 books, are you a serial author or a serial coach?
I think it's funny because whenever I get a new book deal, the first thing my husband will say is, congratulations, this is going to cost us, isn't it? And I just laugh because when you have a commercially published book, you usually commit to buying a certain number of copies so that you can get them into the hands of your clients. Right. And so you have to invest. And I just smile and I'm like, yeah, probably.
Has that worked out for you okay?
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be doing a 6th book if it didn't.
I was going to say that would be the definition of insanity, right? So
some days it just feel like that.
The same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Just take a quick pause. I want to remind everyone that you can get all the downloads at shrimptankpodcast.com/Boston for our previous shows. So like I mentioned, we have something like 1,000 that we've recorded across the country. In terms of industries and stuff, are you seeing any uptick or any changes in the business patterns? Obviously, we're all working virtual for the most part, but do you see any other tidal shifts coming out of this from the pandemic that are important?
Yeah, the companies that were struggling before this pandemic, they're not going to be here. Everyone is like, oh my God, JCPenney just declared bankruptcy, and J.Crew. These companies were struggling before. This is not the pandemic that has taken them down. We're going to see more. Just like, I was driving the other day in my town, and, my husband and I were talking about these storefronts, and we never understood, like, how do these businesses stay in business here? You don't see a lot of people going into these particular stores. And I'm like, well, they're not going to be in business after this. So I think it's really going to, flush out those that really should be in business and are providing value and services, and those that maybe should have closed earlier.
Yeah. Do you see any parallels with like 2008, the other financial fiascos that we've gone through the past couple decades, and with now, do you draw any talent-wise and talent maximization-wise? Do you you were around for that period and you had to probably see some of your talent reposition. Do you see any of those attributes in place today?
Well, the difference between then and now is that this was completely like unexpected, like, boom, you're shut down, you're in lockdown. Like,
Right.
what? I mean, I know I was watching, what was going on in China, and I'm like, whoa, that's China. That's like so far away. That has nothing to do with us. And then all of a sudden, it's here. And I think when you look at the financial markets, I mean, there were signs. People were like, oh, there's going to be a recession. And we even heard about that now, like, oh, there was going to be a recession. But I don't know. Did anyone really take that seriously?
No, but I would maybe 2008 is not the best period, but like 2001 there was a ramp up, and then there was an event that happened after that, which was 9/11, which was not planned for.
Yeah.
And we were in ramp up, and then we had an event. So maybe 2001, 2020 is maybe better. Can you go in your Wayback Machine and draw from any experience there?
Well, back then I had a very young child, so I remember it well. But, I think the difference is that, we recovered. And who would have ever thought like you would ever fly on a plane again? Like, I know I didn't.
Right.
And, it was a few years later or even a year later that we got back on planes and systems changed. And all of a sudden the TSA erupted and all that. And so, there's going to be changes. What they're going to be right now is anyone's guess, but we have to remain nimble because things are going to change. And I was even reading in the Wall Street Journal about some businesses that, they're still waiting for direction on what this new normal is going to look like. And they're afraid to go into their businesses and make changes because tomorrow they might say, no, you need, plastic in front of your employees that's 8 feet high, not 6. And you've already outfitted your, business to be 6 feet high. So I think there's just going to be a lot of wait and see. But in the meantime, you could be planning and you should be planning. And by the time this airs, we're going to know a lot more. So the time to really take action is now.
So is that kind of the message you give in the C-suite to remain nimble, remain, light on your feet and really, expect the unexpected?
I'm telling them to go after that talent now that they never thought that in a million years they would have.
Yeah, we had a previous show with a pretty famous venture capitalist in New England. His name's Mark Cassidy, and he was talking about like in certain professions, like the engineers and some of the talent there, if their value. And it's, again, I know that's the headhunter conversation, but there's certain industries that are not mobile, and there's probably not a lot of movement there just because they're getting paid extremely well and they're in the right place and they have like almost a guaranteed track of growth and things like that. But so you're at the very high level getting to deal with the intellectual capital, the thought leaders in various businesses. In times like these, will they sit down with you and identify, because there's skill sets that we're, like you had mentioned, we're not all prepared for or even saw coming. But is there a reactionary component that's part of your coaching inside your clients where, like, say, an executive, a CEO will just say, my messaging or, whatever skills potentially are identified as being needed right now in a crisis. Is that something that happens with you?
I'm doing a lot of talent strategy planning with my clients. I mean, we did this before. We have to throw it out. It's of no use anymore. This is like, we have to look at everything with a fresh eye, and we have to figure out, what is the business going to look like, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and what kind of talent are we going to need in order to grow and sustain and grow this business, and how are we going to get these people, and what do we need to do right now to change any of our employer branding. So, it's something as simple as, whenever I put up a post on LinkedIn, I really think about the images, and I've got a ton of stock photos where everyone's hugging and you see the 8 hands on top of each other, and if I'm going onto your website today looking for a job and you're so insensitive that everyone's like in your face, what? Like these people haven't changed this in a year.
A
So
conference room with 40 people in it.
exactly. So I have to really think twice before I include a certain photo because I want to make sure I'm sensitive. Just like, after 9/11, would I be showing pictures of people in the airport taking flights? No.
Right, right.
So there's just a lot of behind the scenes work that I'm doing with my clients right now because they have to be ready. They have to be ready to go the minute that their governor says you can open.
Roberta, do you anticipate, just a lot of people, whether it be the C-suite or employees, just working from home? And how much will that change the way, everybody does business, including yourself?
Well, I think it was yesterday, Twitter announced that if you want to work from home forever, you can, if your job allows you to work from home,
right,
and you work at Twitter. I believe Google and Facebook said you can still remain at home for the rest of the year. I think we're going to see more of that because, look at your gorgeous office, Chris. Why should I pay for real estate in downtown Boston at, I don't know, God knows, $1,000 a square foot? I don't know what it is.
No, it's true. It's
yeah,
true.
I mean, there's a lot of obviously upside to, staying at home, but, they're all obviously, for a lot of us, there's a distraction too. There's, the kitchen and there's the kids running around and there's things that, when I'm sitting in my office that I'm really focused on what I need to be doing in terms of work, it seems that, as much as you try, there are some distractions that you don't encounter at home. Now, could that change through routine and process? Probably, but right now, that's where we are.
Right, but it's 9 o'clock tonight and you're home, so you may decide to log back in and send off some more emails and check in with some more clients. And you might not have done that if you got back from the office at 7. So, and let's just hope and pray that our children are back in school come September. So.
Yeah. Do you see the trend? Maybe I guess who knows, but do you see the trend of metrics and in being able to track output for people, or is it just about getting the job done?
I'm a huge proponent of measure based on results, not FaceTime. And if I can get my job done, if I get up at 5:30 in the morning and I'm done by noon, what do you care if I'm not on my computer at 3 or 4? Right. And if you're going to be measuring those metrics, you darn well better know that my son, who's a computer science major, will teach me how to make sure you think that I'm online when I'm not.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's what you pay for, Roberta. That's what you sheltered all that money for.
That's why he's in school.
So I was just curious for you personally, do you start like a January or the beginning of the year with some kind of a business plan, the way that you run your company?
Thank God I don't.
How come?
Right. If you have a business plan and you've created your quotas and your expectations and your sales projections based on, it's a new year, you got to throw them out. You got to start from here. You cannot tell your salesperson that you have not made quota, although our business has not been open and your customers haven't been open. Like that's not fair. So you have to really re-examine everything.
So would you say your process has changed over this?
Yes, I'm very much more nimble. I'm more relaxed. I realize that there are many things that are out of my control. I'm trying to give my clients more value than ever. I'm not looking for a sale. I'm just looking to be of help right now. And, I'm doubling down on my relationships, which is what I think everyone should be doing.
Do you think, I know in Chris and I's respective worlds, when things are going up and up, there's not a lot of people that want to have a discussion sometimes because they don't feel that there's any pain or why upset the apple cart. But now obviously advice is back at a high premium and people want to take the calls. They want to contrast and compare. Do you find with what's going on with you right now, is that something that you're experiencing that, I don't know if you can quantify it. I can't personally, but I know the number of calls I'm having every day and all that, but it just seems people are a lot more receptive to advice and they want to talk about things that they normally would just not even entertain. Do you experience any of that in your world now?
Yeah, I think that's true because people are at home, and so they're more available. It's not like you're not, if you have their cell phone number, you're getting right through. You're not going through their voicemail. People are really starving for communication and, you know, and just connecting. And so they're more apt to be on the phone with you a little bit longer and allowing you more time to really hear how they're doing. So that's my experience.
Yeah, I'll
And
say
what,
that's my experience as well. I mean, you're planning on a phone call that usually takes 15 minutes or half an hour, and it's pretty much double that. And I think you're right. I think it's 100% people starving for that outside communication. They can't wait to get on the phone.
I'm so happy to see you guys. I can't even.
It is what it
You're
is.
the only people I've seen all day.
yeah, and I took a shower at 2, so.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
What I hear though, which is really nice, because I think both Chris and I are doing the same thing, but it sounds like you're leaning into this difficult period because you see that there's a need and there's opportunity and market share that can be attained versus,
Yeah,
you know,
but I'm also,
waiting for the phone to ring.
yeah, but I'm also, you know, not trying to be obnoxious and, you know, sell, like, here's what I can do for you. This is what it's going to cost. It's like, I'm here if you need me.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? Like late night, you hear we want to, you know, hats off to the healthcare workers, and now it's time to get replacement windows.
Oh,
You know, or something like that. Every commercial is about that or something.
yeah, it's a little much. So I've stopped watching the evening news. I'm like, okay, I'm done. David here is not going to tell me anything else that I don't know right now.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. So one of the things we always like to do is you did talk a couple times about your new book. Do you want to just touch on why our followers should grab that book and what they could expect to get from it?
Well, here it is. It's
There
hot
it
off
is.
the press. It came out February 1st. It's called Evergreen Talent. It's available on the Kindle as well as on Audible. And it's all about how to seed and grow and cultivate a sustainable workforce. And I have, you know, gone back through the book because I'm like, okay, is this still relevant? And I'm like, yes, it's more relevant than ever. There's also a companion workbook that if your listeners would like that workbook, I'm happy to send it to them. And they can try their hand at creating their own Evergreen Talent plot and you know, seed their organization for their growth.
So how quickly do you ramp up the next book? Because I know you have obviously a whole belt full of books.
Well, I have a book proposal that's being shopped around right now, so that's how quickly. If we get when we get the green light, I'll start writing it, and it'll probably be out, and I imagine late 2021, maybe 2022.
What's kind of the timeline for you to write a book?
It takes me 4 months.
After the thumbs up from her husband.
Well, it takes me 4 to 5 months.
Too.
Yeah, depending on you know, what the season is, whether I've got a lot of other things going on, but usually you're given 6 months. So
Roberta, we're going to probably wrap up here, but for our listeners, what's the best way to get a hold of you? And maybe you could talk about website or email, whatever you prefer, but I know folks will definitely want to reach out to you.
Sure. You can reach out to me at roberta@matuson.com. You can also follow me on LinkedIn. If you'd like to send me a connection request, just mention this podcast so I know who you are and you don't hit delete. And follow me on Twitter @Matuson.
Well, on behalf of Chris, we both want to thank you for your very informative information. It sounds like you're just crushing it, and
That was great.
Great resource for our listeners, and a lot of value-added content, which we appreciate the time and all that. But we want to both thank you for being on our show today.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and I look forward to seeing you again.
No question about it. Thank you, Roberta.
Thank you so much.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.